Hello, and welcome to today's webinar on event planning and social media. My name is Alicia Sneed, and I am the CEO and founder of As Told in PR. And as a small business influencer and public relations professional for over 5 years now, I find it my distinct pleasure to discuss with you today 5 ways for event planners to promote their brands using social media. Tonight, we'll be taking questions and comments over Twitter. Please use the handle Alicia Sneed, and please use the hashtag GrowMyEventBiz. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to now activate screen share. Okay. So again, this is event planning and social media, 5 ways for event planners to promote their brands using social media. On tonight's agenda, we will be discussing starting right, staying right, and finishing right. The perfect pitch on social media. We'll be discussing friends and what that relationship entails. Also, content and knowing your platforms. Again, questions and comments can be given over Twitter using the handle at Alicia Sneed. Please take note of the spelling. Also using the hashtag GrowMyEventBiz. Okay, so when you're talking about starting right, staying right, and finishing right over social media, like event planning and everything starts with a vision. And it's the same thing with social media. Don't hold back. Get out there on social media as soon as possible. Don't ever have the approach that you don't have anything to offer, because if you're confident in your expertise, others will be too. Use your credentials as leverage and then talk about your passion. For event planners, this means displaying information and photography from your events and any ideas and tips that you've learned while in business. People are going to be looking at what you know first, and then at who you are and who you know. So I know everyone's kind of wondering, okay, what is the photo here? So this is the cover of the recent movie called Pitch Perfect, which is about a group of girls at a college university that are in an a cappella group. So quite naturally, we will not be talking about that sort of pitch tonight, but what we will be discussing is how to pitch and present yourself over social media. If you want your event or your company to be taken seriously, you need to present it as such on your social media platforms. This means taking the time to establish a solid profile on social media using what I refer to as the 3 Ps: polished, professional, and personable. So, I know you're probably thinking, well, in event planning, you can only relay but so much on social media, especially on Pinterest. And I'm going to encourage you that that's not necessarily true. There are so many ways to promote yourself on social media. There are endless possibilities because, to be honest, the end goal is simply to invite the world to get to know you as a person. What we do professionally is not who we are. Balance is always the key, and that's in both content and photos. Learn to take the approach that what you're offering, which is an experience, you can use that to your advantage. Sell the quality of your expertise in your social media. Think of your business like Disney World, where you feel like you've already had the Disney experience long before you've actually physically experienced it, because of everything that you might have seen on the media, in their websites, and so on and so forth. So what you ought to do is conduct yourself with 2 things in mind. Number 1, you were followed or friended on social media because you have expertise that others see and think is of value. Therefore, don't make the mistake of becoming too friendly and thus diminishing your value in their eyes. This, in short, means don't be too personal. Don't be too friendly with your personal information, should I say. And then number two, it's okay and even advised to present yourself as likable. And what this simply means is don't be strictly business. Don't have people thinking that you're not human too. Overall, I would just advise to use discretion, and when in doubt, opt for professional or do not post at all. Overall, just remember, even on social media, that first impressions are everything. So pitch perfectly, remain consistent, and retain your value. And so we're going to be looking at an event planner that is pretty famous. And he's personally one of my favorites. His name is David Tatera, and he does this just absolutely phenomenally. He always pitches perfectly, in my opinion. So here's his website. If you notice, his content is really fluid. It gives his story, and then goes on to how he built his professional career. And in that, he shows how he's a good curator of information and how he links to other important information. Also, he talks about he leaves the video footage on there, which is actually a great video to watch. And as well, he has clean photos, which is always a must on social media. If you look at his Google Plus page, he talks about things that are related to event planning, but he also talks about things that are just his personal favorites, so to speak, that things that he's interested in. So, for instance, he talks about Maya Angelou on here. If you go down more, he talks about some music, and of course, he shares some of his media, where he's been featured in other magazines as well as other video content. And if you look on his Pinterest page, it is almost the same thing. He talks about shoes, about his wedding dress line, about jewelry. He also shows that he's a good curator of information because he's giving ideas that people can do themselves. And that is one of the best ways to show that you are relevant, by giving people little tips here and little tips there, so that they know that you are a relevant source of information to come back to when they need that expertise again. On his Twitter page, he kind of does the same thing. On Twitter, he actually talks about his appearances on WeTV and his show celebrations. He also talks about different appearances that he'll be having. He talks about other things that he, really likes and enjoys. And he's really shown himself very personable, which is actually a big part of being an event planner. He also, of course, is still giving his tips and trends. And the same thing, I guess you'll notice on his Facebook page, where he's, taking the personable photos and all of that. He's also doing other videos. And, okay, this is the perfect example here where he's showing that he's very personable. Who would have ever known that he liked trolleys? I mean, really. He is also, again, talking about his different appearances and so on and so forth. And what I really want you to notice is that over his social mediums, he talks about similar information that's not always presented the same way, but it is similar in nature. And so that's what you want to do across your social mediums. That is very important to remaining consistent and showing yourself as a good curator of information. So when we talk about that, I'd like to present another resource to you guys known as a webinar on HubSpot that I ran into from social media guru Guy Kawasaki. He is absolutely excellent if you're looking to, of course, expand your brand on social media and things of that nature. And this webinar is free. It was about an hour long or so, and it talks about Guy Kawasaki's 10 tips for building a social media following. Again, it is a great resource to use if you're, of course, looking to, of course, be a great curator of information, which is clearly what we're all trying to do here. So let's go ahead and finish our slide. The next thing that we are going to be discussing is about friends on social media. When looking to grow your business, whether it is in event planning or otherwise, show yourself friendly. Remain approachable and hang around those that have your answers, not those that have your problems. As a professional always looking to improve your business, focus on being well-rounded and gaining friends as opposed to gaining voice. Your relevancy will speak for itself. And when we talk about this word friend, really define what that means to you and what your part in that friendship looks like as a professional. Look at what you are bringing to the table on social media, because the online relationship is just as important as the in-person relationship, especially if you are looking to do business with those people that you are presenting to, which quite naturally you would be. In this instance, I take the same approach as Guy Kawasaki, in that social media is about you offering your expertise to the world. And that's why it's important to gain friends. And that's more important than gaining specific friends. In the end, you just want an audience, not necessarily a small fan group. By showing interest in others' work and networking, you'll get that audience, that large audience that values you and will inevitably make you of value to others. So, point number 4, when we're talking about content, content is a huge part of the value that people see in you as a professional. And this is where knowing the needs, wants, and desires of your audience can come into play. Social media today is always, always, always a dialogue. You put out the content and your audience will respond, whether that's in sales because you offered a product, or shares and word of mouth endorsements because you provided great content that gives your audience what they need to hear. The value is within your experience. Small businesses and event planners particularly need to connect online with their audience. And the way to do that is blogging. There is power in the blog. It shows your credibility and expertise to your audience before they connect with you in person. It's where you progressively talk about what you know and what you've learned while in the business, as well as your ideas. And it's progressive because you'll create a content schedule where you can post these tips, trends, and ideas at your own pace. This is how you'll begin to have clients track you down to plan their events, how other businesses will begin to refer you, and your small business can become a big business. But you have to use your content to meet your audience where they are, not the other way around. And the best way to do that, of course, is by knowing your platforms. So in event planning, a phrase that is commonly used that couldn't fit more perfectly here is called knowing the lay of the land. For non-event planners, this simply means being prepared and knowing what you're getting into in its entirety before you go or agree to a thing. And this is so that things can be successful. So yes, everyone is on these social media sites either out of obligation or because they feel it's the right thing to be doing for their business. But the truth is that many people don't know who they are connecting with or what they are connecting to or agreeing to by gaining followers. For social media, the same applies. This goes back to our conversation on friends. Each friend request you send or approve is agreeing to a relationship, which rightfully so has expectations. So the important thing to know here is to approach each medium knowing the message you're trying to convey and to whom you're trying to convey it. Guy Kawasaki puts it like this. Facebook is for people you already know, such as friends, close acquaintances, and family. Twitter, on the other hand, is all about perception and broadcasting. Google Plus, let's go to LinkedIn first. LinkedIn is about your business-to-business network, where connections are majority strictly business. You almost never see anything personal relayed on LinkedIn. Google Plus is where you express your passions without necessarily knowing people, but by expressing your passions, people with like passions, of course, will gravitate to you and vice versa. And Pinterest, of course, everyone loves Pinterest, is your dreamland of simply great stuff. Um, so when you look at all of those together, in a sense, when you look at starting right, staying right, and finishing right, and pitching perfectly to your friends with great content, by knowing your platforms, everything falls into place. That's how you finish right. Stay right and finish right. So that is all for my 5 ways for event planners to promote their business. And now we're just going to jump right into some questions from attendees that have submitted via Twitter. So the first question is from Karen. And Karen asks, what is your top tip for promoting an event? And my top tip for promoting an event I'm planning would be to advertise across social media platforms and use information targeted towards users on that platform. So this may mean that although you're using the same information, it may be presented differently on your platforms. Remember, you are tailoring the information to fit their needs, not the other way around. And of course, this goes back to what we saw on David Tatera's social media sites as well. And the reason I say this is because you never want to assume that your entire audience is on one social media platform. Spreading the information around allows you to promote to people that are both interested for their personal gain and interested for someone that they know's personal gain. And they're all looking, of course, to gain from your experience that you're offering. So our second question comes from James, and he's asking, what is your advice on having personal and professional social media pages? My advice, James, is that while it's okay, use discretion. Think of your social media like a background check. When you are interested in something that someone has to offer, you are going to do your homework and research them to the best of your ability. The reason being is that you want to ensure that this person is meeting whatever standard you have set in place in order to feel comfortable to do business with them. This inevitably means that what you reveal on your personal page can still very much affect you professionally. So share your personal life sparingly. Okay, we have time for about 2 more questions here when wrapping up. Brittany from Chicago is asking, you mentioned a content schedule can help with blogging. Could you describe that in further detail? Sure, Brittany. A content schedule is simply a way in which you can share your expertise with the world in an organized manner. A content schedule can be as simple as sharing 4 recipes every week for a month, or sharing your professional advice on trending topics twice a month. Content, of course, is based on the needs, wants, and desires of your clients. And so is the timing of the release of information, meaning like if it's urgent to them, it should be urgent to you. But you can control the organization of that content. Just plan accordingly so that you are, of course, being consistent and retaining your value. And the final question comes from Nicole. And Nicole is asking, I'm from Upper Marlboro, Maryland, and just got engaged about a month ago. Do you have any specific event planners in the Maryland area that you would recommend? And yes, Nicole, I actually do. This is, of course, just my professional, personal preference. But an event planning and wedding company by the name of Envisioned Affairs, and Nicole, that's ENVISIONED Affairs. It's located pretty close to you in Bowie, Maryland. The senior planner's name is Adrienne Wiles. I have met with her a few times. She's an excellent event planner to work with. And I suggest that you check them out on Facebook and at their website, which is envisionedaffairs.com. Well, we're now coming to the end of our webinar. Again, my name is Alicia Sneed from As Told in PR. Feel free to connect with me on social media at Alicia Sneed. And remember to write out your vision, be confident in your expertise, and be your best promoter by using social media correctly to grow your business. Thank you all for watching and have a great evening.